Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Supreme Darkness may no longer have any new themes to discuss, but now there's a new special set that just released that I'm chomping at the bit to cover. Terminal World 1 was a promising first outing, focusing on releasing legacy support for Duel Terminal lore themes while fleshing out the world. And while I've had very mixed feelings on how they go about that, seeing them care about the lore gives me new hope for future endeavors down the line. Like Terminal World 2! Sadly, we've already talked about Gem-Knights, Fabled, and Nekroz on this channel, so their new cards won't be covered until their release in the TCG. But that does leave us with a fourth theme, and is possibly the most anticipated out of the bunch. Premiering in the July 2010 side set Hidden Arsenal 2, Jurracs are a tribe of dinosaurs that made their home in the land of Terminus. And while they weren't caught up between the initial clash between the X-Sabers, Mist Valley, Ice Barrier, and Flamvel, the invading worms made an enemy of every living creature on the planet. And if I'm being honest, was probably the tribe that sacrificed the most to bring an end to not only the worm invasion, but the subsequent fabled insurrection as well. And thus, they've been honored with a new wave of legacy support that's been getting the community buzzing ever since we got a taste. So let us delay no longer. Prepare to see what made the fiendish Fabled go extinct, and trust me, Nibiru doesn't have anything on this. It's time for Jurrac Explained. Today's episode is brought to you by my lovely patrons, as well as the wonderful people over at Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and save 5% on your order by using coupon code GoldenNova at checkout. So, what's the deal with Jurracs? Well, they're a series of fire attribute dinosaur type monsters, and they have a big focus on destruction and combat. Some monsters trigger effects when destroyed, some gain extra benefits when destroying monsters, and they do so by gaining some pretty massive stat boosts. But as an early Duel Terminal archetype, asking for a large amount of consistency in their game plan is basically a pipe dream. First up, we have Jurrac Aeolo, a level 1 tuner monster with 200 attack and defense, and you contribute this card to select a level 4 or lower Jurrac monster in your grave, except a copy of itself, and special summon that monster from the grave. So if you don't have a need for its tuner status, you can just make it into any other Jurrac in your roster that's already fallen in combat. But despite how specifically it's a piece of Jurrac support, it's one of the most widely used tech cards in dinosaur decks, because it occupies a very specific niche. You are currently looking at the only kind of level 1 dinosaur tuner monster in the game, which makes it incredibly useful as a target to summon off of Miscellaneous Source. At the very least, it's a free monster, but if you need a synchro, well, it's got you covered. A pretty fantastic track record for such a little creature, and like, look at Aeolo, it knows how cool it is. It's blowing a little fire jet while chilling out in its shell pad. This is like the coolest baby I've ever seen. Jurrac Megalo is a level 1 tuner monster with 500 attack and 1300 defense, and if you control a dinosaur monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. During your main phase, you can discard 2 cards, including a Jurrac card, then draw 2 cards. And if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can send a Jurrac monster from your deck or extra deck to the grave. So while Aeolo was the only level 1 dinosaur tuner, there is now a second thanks to this latest wave of support. And honestly, it's a wonderful addition. Aeolo was good because it had a specific number of characteristics, but didn't really have an effect worth using. Now, you can summon Megalo using Misk instead, and now you have a way to cycle through some cards, which is a given if you're playing pure Jurracs. Could be a bit less consistent if you're just splashing them in. But even outside its utility with Misk, it's a free summon from hand if you have a dino, so even drawing it isn't terrible. And if it ends up getting destroyed instead of converting into an extra deck monster, the Foolish Burial effect is actually pretty ridiculous since we can pull from the extra deck as well, something we'll be revisiting once we get to the specific synchro monster this combos with. And hey, if all else fails, I mean, it is a level 1 fire monster, so you know what that means. Jurrac Snake Eyes! That's right, you thought the year of fire was over? Go back to the sink, Merlantians, this torch ain't ever going out! Jurrac Gallum is a level 2 tuner monster with 1200 attack, and when this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the grave, the monster that destroyed this card is destroyed, though your opponent can discard a card to negate this card's effect. So yeah, either your opponent loses the monster or they lose a card in hand, your opponent's choice. And that's my least favorite kind of thing to see on a card. Even though both are technically bad choices for the opponent, because they get to choose what they discard, they could randomly end up with a discard outlet that they needed. And heaven forbid if your opponent's monster monster has an on-destruction effect trigger. I suppose you could try to crash into a monster when your opponent has no cards in hand, but there are just so many other options you could play for removal, even by the time this card was printed. I was expecting more from the dino with a big cannon sticking out of its chest, but Granosaurus, this is not. Jurrac Explained is a level 2 monster with 500 attack and 400 defense, and if this card is destroyed by battle, special summon 2 Jurrac tokens in defense position, which are level 1 fire dinosaur monsters with 0 attack and defense, and they can't be attributed for a tribute summon unless it's for a Jurrac monster. But it doesn't limit how the tokens can be used for other kinds of summons. So if destroyed on the opponent's turn, you have some extra blockers to keep your life points safe, but on your own turn, you can crash this into something so you have an extra material during the main phase 2 to work with. My only question here is, what do the tokens represent? Like, the official token art shows that it's eggs, but like, are we beating the eggs right out of it? And nothing else gets eggs punched out of it when it gets destroyed? What makes Stariko so special? Jurrac Brachus is a level 3 tuner monster with 1000 attack and defense, and while another face-up Jurrac monster is on the field, this card cannot be destroyed by battle. So if you summon this alongside another Jurrac, it'll force the opponent to take care of that before Brachus can be tackled. And if you have 2 Brachuses on board at the same time, then congratulations! While you have not formed an attack lock, they won't be able to use battle alone to destroy the Brachuses. But I mean, with necks that long, I can see why it would be a problem. Lining up a good hit on something that far up is hard enough as it is. But now they can just start climbing each other's necks to keep gaining infinite elevation? How can anything defeat that? Jurrac Dino is a level 3 tuner monster with 1700 attack and 800 defense, and once during each player's end phase, if this card destroyed an opponent's monster by battle this turn, you can tribute a Jurrac monster to draw 2 cards. That is such a strange draw 2 effect. It wasn't enough to expect we take what is a subpar attack stat and run over an opposing monster. We have to wait till the end phase and tribute a monster to do it? Like, if the only Jurrac you have is Dino, then you'd have to tribute it to get the draw. Like, what am I supposed to defend about this? I can't even say that it's the only level 3 tuner in our roster, so it's not like we don't have other options. I swear, if this card didn't have a jack-o'-lantern painted on its tummy, Jurrac Dino would be Jurrac done. Jurrac Monoloth is a level 3 tuner monster with 1500 attack and 1200 defense, and it can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. So despite being weaker than Dino, this at least comes with a ton of potential. It's the kind of effect that put Bujinte Susanoo on the map, so with a bit of a boost, Monoloth can sweep boards with the best of them. Now sadly, this does brush up against the cold reality that Jurracs don't come with a lot of spell and trap support on theme to help them reach that full potential. There are some dinosaur options, sure, but the main one is admittedly a kick and field spell, but now that's not really an option thanks to a new field spell that's basically a must play for the theme. And the worst part? There's still no attack buff attached to it. So keep an eye out for any good equip cards or other anthems that can buff this guy into the 2000s, because the idea of this overtaking a field of ancient mythical dragons, eldritch horrors, and cyborg grapplers fills me with the same kind of sadistic glee I can otherwise only get from negating effects without using the chain. They never see it coming, it's so satisfying. Jurrac Terra is a level 3 monster with 800 attack and 1500 defense, and if this card is attacked, return the attacking monster to the hand after damage calculation, and this card gains defense equal to the returned monster's level times 100. I presume the idea was to introduce some kind of wall of illusion card to the set. You know, you put it face down, your opponent tries to breach it, and they get punished for it. Thankfully, the bounce happens no matter what, if it gets destroyed or not. But which world do we live in where 1500 is both enough defense to ward off attacks, and gets you a meaningful boost based on the level of the monster attacking it? It's not like the opponent is going to fall for it a second time, they'll know what the defense stat is. Are you hoping that Terra will get so buff from that first activation that your opponent will be forced to use an even bigger monster to sacrifice to the bounce to clear the way? I am, truthfully, flabbergasted. Please never ever make another card like this ever again, R&D. Unless it's like an illusion monster, that would actually be really funny now that I think about it. The images aren't real, and the P is silent, so the two concepts go together really well. Jurrac Guaiba is a level 4 monster with 1700 attack and 400 defense, and if this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can special summon a Jurrac monster with 1700 or less attack from your deck, but it can't declare an attack this turn. Ah, now this is another famous monster, though its impact didn't really reach far into the future. Gwaiba would release around at the same time as another fire archetype that loves its dinos, Evols, which also consisted of reptiles and dragons. Powerful negation bodies like Dolka and Logia owned the tournament scene under the banner of the Dino Rabbit Brew, and any way to get 2 level 4 dinosaurs onto your field to facilitate their summons was considered. Enter Gwaiba, a monster with a decent enough attack stat that could summon another copy of Gwaiba from your deck with their own effect. And while they couldn't provide immediate offensive pressure, main phase 2 would then have an Xyz monster shaped solution to many of your problems, giving you a negation body that answered something you expected your opponent would have on the follow-up, keeping their resources and game plans locked down. It was, at the time, basically another iteration of Blackwing Shura the Blue Flame or Flamvel Firedog, giving you an incredible advantage boost if you're able to win in combat. Nowadays, that kind of effect has fallen off, and while I don't want to say it can never be useful again, Gwaiba isn't the auto-include in dino decks that it once was. Which is a darn shame, because this has the best posing of any Jurrac monster in the theme. Look at it doing its little jig, they're so excited to be helping. Jurrac Iguanon is a level 4 monster with 1700 attack and 700 defense, and if this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can select a set card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. Once again, another card that gets you benefits from winning battles, but is nowhere near explosive as Gwaiba, but it's not without its merits. True, most set back row cards would be activated long before Iguanon would have a chance to munch on a monster, but it can bounce more than just back row. If your opponent has a monster set on the field, you can run over another one with Iguanon to have it bounce that set monster to the hand, effectively giving you a 2-for-1 on combat under the right circumstances. But that's a very good word for it, circumstantial, because that's the kind of utility this is going to provide for you. Best steer away from it, especially because it's spending all of its time trying to learn how to do the Kamehameha or Hadoken or whatever, instead of polishing some real skills. Truly, this is the most weeb of all the dinosaurs. Jurrac Protops is a level 4 monster with 1700 attack and 1200 defense, and it gains 100 attack for each monster your opponent controls. Yup, that's it. This monster, the size of most other Jurracs, grows ever so slightly larger, capping out at 2300. Granted, 2 monsters puts it at 1900, and that's a good baseline for level 4s nowadays, but it still lacks anything that we need in modern decks, so don't go relying on this card to shore up your defenses for very long. It seems like, rather than being all pro tops, this monster is all con tops. Jurrac Stygo is a level 4 monster with 1700 attack and 900 defense, and during your main phase, you can destroy a card you control, and if you do, send a dinosaur monster from your deck to the grave. Then, you can special summon Jurrac monsters from your hand and or deck, whose total levels equal the set monster's level, except Jurrac Stygo, ignoring summoning conditions. Also, you can't special summon for the rest of the turn, except dinosaur monsters, which sadly shuts off your ability to summon out Dolka and Logia. And when this card is destroyed by battle, you can return a face-up card on the field to the hand. This is another new addition to the theme, and it is a godsend, helping us to play some of the monsters that are otherwise just unplayable. Bit of a spoiler here, but let's just say that Titano really needs the help. Or, you can send a big dinosaur to summon a swarm of tiny Jurracs. If anything, you can send a monster from your deck to the grave with the same level as a dinosaur synchro you're trying to summon, and you'll just have all the material you need right there, no questions asked. And then if it gets run over by battle, it still has some removal just in case. This is going to be a workhorse for the theme moving forward, not only to help solidify Jurrac's place in modern dinosaur lists, but also providing a pretty disgusting foolish burial to go along with it. Not to mention that, in the face of effects like Change of Heart that steal your cards, you have the perfect catchphrase, Lego my Stygo! Jurrac Velo is a level 4 monster with 1700 attack and 1000 defense, and when this face-up attack position card attacks or is attacked, and it's destroyed by battle and sent to the grave, you can special summon a Jurrac monster with 1700 or less attack from your deck. This covers just about all our level 4 and lower Jurracs, including itself. So if you wanted to fill your grave, you could crash Velo into Velo into Velo into whatever other Jurrac fits the bill. Heck, in very niche cases, you could crash the Velo to get Protops, which could have the attack necessary to clear an opposing threat, but like I said beforehand, very unlikely. I'd only endorse this if you needed to get a lot of dinos and or fire monsters into your grave really quickly. And if so, the payoff has to be really, really good. I'm not settling for Blaster, I want Ultimate Conductor Tyranno or nothing. I mean, a clever girl deserves a clever win condition after all. Jurrac Hera is a level 6 monster with 2300 attack and 1500 defense, and when a defense position Jurrac monster you control, except a copy of this card, is destroyed by battle and sent to the grave, you can special summon this card from your hand or grave. That's since it triggers from the grave, this is actually an interesting include. True, the float only happens on battle, but if you can keep putting out blockers, this means you get double value and or a way to retaliate with a decently sized monster. Not only is 2300 pretty beefy as far as attacks go, level 6 makes for great non-tuner synchro material and potentially Xyz material. Rank 6s aren't getting any worse after all, and we're in need of as much help as we can get. But really, there are two big reasons why you'd want to include Hera in your deck. That pair of gnarly shoulder-mounted cannons. Either those come stock with their species, or the Flamvels did one hell of a job upgrading them. Either way, I'm sold. Jurrac Spinos is a level 7 monster with 2600 attack and 1700 defense, and if this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the grave, special summon a Spinos token in attack position to their field, which is a level 1 fire dinosaur monster with 300 attack and 0 defense. That's right, Jurracs have a second archetypal token that they can generate. The idea here is kinda cool. By leaving a token on the opponent's side of the field, your smaller Jurracs have an attack target, giving them a chance to attack when they otherwise might not have been able to, with other bigger monsters dominating the opposing side of the field. This is especially useful for Jurrac cards like Dino, so they have something easy to run over for their draw effect, or with Guaiba giving you a free special summon. But that being the payoff of our giant, 2 tribute monster feels outrageously underwhelming. Cactus Fighter is a non-tribute monster with 1900 attack, and its effect is only marginally worse than this. Even with the ease of summon provided by Stigo, I wouldn't bother trying to field this if my life depended on it. I can't believe I get to say this, but out of all the Spinos cards in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, this is easily the worst. And when you're losing out to a monster that isn't even a dinosaur, who's a water attribute? Man, that's gotta sting. Jurrac Tyrannus is a level 7 monster with 2500 attack and 1400 defense, and it can contribute a dinosaur monster to gain 500 attack. And if this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the grave, it gains 300 attack. And all of these buffs are permanent and not once per turn, so you can feed a whole sleeve of dinos to Tyrannus to turn this thing into a juggernaut. And even if you have nothing to feed its voracious appetite, it'll just snack on your opponent's monsters. This is much better than Spinos for our level 7 slot, potentially getting big enough to oppose any kind of threat the opponent throws at you, but it's not so much of an improvement that I'm going to bat for it. But I'm certainly not going to turn my nose up at it should we be made to cross paths, especially with that fuzzy lime green mane it's got going on. Hey, is this in the running for most cuddly Jurrac? Jurrac Titano is a level 9 monster with 3000 attack and 2800 defense that cannot be special summoned. It can't be targeted by monster or trap card effects, and once per turn, you can banish a Jurrac monster with 1700 or less attack from your graveyard to give this card 1000 attack until the end phase. Yeah, so you may have noticed that Jurrac has a lot of monsters with 1700 or less attack. Not sure why that is specifically, might have something to do with a lot of fire cards carrying about 200 defense, and so Jurrac wanted their own special number, but beyond that, I'm lost. Its attack boost is not permanent like how Tyrannus's is, but when you're starting with a base 3000 attack and you're not spending monsters that are on the field, I'd say that's a marked improvement. And it's now more easy than ever to summon, thanks to Stigo ignoring summoning conditions. And it's as easy as running 2 Titanos. Send one from deck to summon the other one from the deck. And while the protection from monsters and trap cards isn't completely comprehensive, it does still ward off a lot of interaction that would otherwise keep you from winning the game. Though I have to admit, there is something intensely funny about this primordial creature that can wield so much power, but can only be stopped by a fancy book. Of the Moon, no less. Doesn't seem so powerful now. I don't know what the Fabled were complaining about. Alright, that does it for the main deck monsters. Now it's time to take a look at our synchros, starting with Jurrac Velfido, a level 5 monster with question mark attack and defense, requiring a tuner and one or more non-tuner dinosaur monsters as material. This card's attack and defense are equal to the total original attack of the synchro material monsters used for its synchro summon, and if it attacks a face-down defense position monster, you can destroy it immediately via card effect before flipping it up or applying damage calculation. This makes it one of the safer cards to scout out your opponent's face-down down monsters, but the real question is, how strong can we make this? Well, if we just check our on-theme options, 2200 is where this caps out, using a level 4 non-tuner like Gwaiba that has 1700, plus a level 1 tuner on theme like Megalo, which has 500 attack. Apparently you can get this up to 2800 if you combine Magna Drago and Gillosaurus, but that involves playing both Magna Drago and Gillosaurus, so you know, we can just ignore those. Which is probably why it needs the help of that big toe claw to get over defense position monsters. That attack stat isn't going to do much against many opponents. And yet, despite all that, it still looks so smug. Yeah, have a good run, Buckaroo. Can't wait for it to find out that the optimal pair of synchro materials is something no sane person would ever put in their deck list. It can ride that and its giant mischievous grin all the way to the bank. Jurrac Giganoto is a level 7 monster with 2100 attack and 1800 defense, requiring a tuner monster and one or more non-tuner dinosaur monsters as material. And while on the field, all face-up Jurrac monsters you control gain 200 attack for each Jurrac monster in your grave. Now, that base stat line might make it look like this is some more Duel Terminal chaff, but this is actually the one with the most potential. While the bonus per Jurrac is small, the fact that it applies to all of your Jurracs means this gets out of control really quickly. If we loop through all the Velos like we were talking about earlier, that's at least 600 attack added to everything. Giganoto goes up to 2700, and monsters like Gwaiba go up to 2300, making it much easier to get their battle triggers and overall help to bully your opponent's monsters into submission. The only hangup is that it's an effect fueled by Jurracs and only works with Jurracs. So while the non-tuner can be any dino, it's only going to provide good utility to a pure version of the deck, and our newer cards are really leaning into the dinosaurs as an archetype design structure that we've seen since the Dino Smashers deck was released. This is positioned to be a really strong card as we get more and more playable Jurracs, which hopefully future core sets can help us with, but for now, Giganoto isn't going to do much to leave a Giga impact. Jurrac Estero is a level 10 monster with 2500 attack and 2300 defense, requiring a tuner and one or more non-tuner dinosaur monsters as material. If this card is synchro summoned, you can set a Jurrac spell or trap card from your deck or grave to your field. Once per turn, when your opponent would special summon any number of monsters as a quick effect, you can banish 2 dinosaur monsters from your grave to negate the summon, and if you do, destroy those monsters. And during your opponent's turn as a quick effect, you can banish 2 Jurrac monsters from your grave, including this card, to special summon a Jurrac Meteor from your extra deck, which is treated as a synchro summon. Wow, that is a lot of stuff packed into one monster, and basically all of it is relevant. While your options for the spell and trap tutoring are limited, both are pretty consequential, but we'll get into those shortly in the spell and trap section. Having a monster with inherent summoning negation is pretty fantastic no matter what deck you're playing, especially since you're just about guaranteed to have at least 2 dinos in grave as fuel just by dint of having made a synchro monster, so you have a great turn 1 option against any deck that loves synchros, Ixies, or link monsters, and all those nasty little main deck monsters that have their own inherent summoning conditions. But it's that last effect that may give you means to pause, because if you're not caught up on all the old Jurrac cards, this may not mean much to you. So to make sure we have the full context, let's quickly move on to Jurrac Meteor, a level 10 monster with 2800 attack and 2000 defense, requiring a Jurrac tuner and 2 or more dinosaur non-tuner monsters as material. When this card is synchro summoned, destroy all cards on the field. Then you can special summon a tuner monster from your grave. So you would roll a bunch of Jurracs together to flatten the entire board if you needed some breathing room, leaving you with at least a tuner to start rebuilding your board. But you may be able to see the issue here. Not only is this a 3 material minimum monster to summon, not only do the non-tuners have to be dinosaurs, the tuner has to be a Jurrac specifically, and with all of them lacking any kind of utility, it didn't have the same kind of widespread adoption as a monster like Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, even though it had the potential to be much scarier. However, fast forward to the present and we can see what the modern Jurrac support is trying to accomplish. Cheat out Jurrac Meteor so you have a board reset button at your disposal during any part of your opponent's turn, and it's no longer locked to exclusive Jurrac use. See, with the inclusion of Jurrac Megalo, our helpful new level 1 tuner, we can pop it to send any Jurrac from our deck to the grave, or extra deck to the grave. So have it send a Stero, and during your opponent's turn, you can banish a Stero and one other Jurrac from your grave, which will inevitably be Megalo, and now you can Black Rose Dragon your opponent at the drop of a hat while getting a tuner back from the graveyard. A Stero, and by extension Meteor, are now going to see a lot more play over the coming months as a way for Dinosaur decks to get back in the game after losing all their resources. But at the same time, this is a little insensitive, right? We keep making them relive the most traumatic dinosaur event in dinosaur history. Did they, like, ask for this kind of exposure therapy or something? Alright, that clears out all the synchros. Now it's time for a very teensy section on the spell and trap cards. Jurrac Volcano is a field spell card that, during your main phase, lets you destroy a dinosaur monster you control, and if you do, special summon a Jurrac monster from your deck. And if your opponent special summons any number of monsters and they've activated monster effects 4 or more times this turn, you can special summon Jurrac Meteor from your extra deck, and this is treated as a synchro summon. Also, if any number of Jurrac monsters you control would be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish a dinosaur monster from your grave instead. Wow, a card that blows up dinos and gets you more dinos. Who would have guessed? More than likely, this is going to put Megalo or Stigo onto the board as our two newest and most competent Jurracs. However, it doesn't put a level limit on what you can summon, so while Titano does restrict its own special summon, you could summon something like Tyrannus if you really wanted to. But we've also got ourselves another way to bring out a synchro summoned Jurrac Meteor, this time mimicking how Nibiru works. Sadly, it's not something you can fire off once you've met the conditions. You do have to wait for your opponent to reach their 4th monster effect activation, then wait for them to special summon something. But a free board wipe is still a free board wipe, especially with the field spell's 3rd effect in consideration. While Meteor destroys everything at once, Volcano will be able to apply its continuous effect to keep all of your Jurracs safe from the blast. Now granted, if you're running a general dino deck, the field spell will still kill things like UCT, but Jurrac Meteor will survive, letting you leverage that giant 2800 attack stat and letting you have that tuner, which is pretty lovely. Kind of makes me wish they had access to that when their species was going extinct, but hey, better late than never, right? Jurrac Impact is a normal trap card that you can only activate if you control a dinosaur monster with 2500 or more attack to destroy all cards on the field. Yup, it's another Jurrac Meteor effect, this time to go along with any moderately sized dinosaur. This is your 2nd option to grab off of a Stero, which thankfully has enough attack itself to enable the activation of Impact. So when your opponent does something you don't like, you can flip this trap card, nuke the whole board, and then if your opponent rebuilds, you use a Stero's effect from the grave to put them down again. And because this is compatible with any dinosaur, not just on theme ones, it's still not a dead draw if you manage to hard pull it as soon as you have access to a big dino. So because it's searchable, be on the lookout for this card in the future, as the increased consistency of this joke card might just make it the real deal. And I do mean a joke card. Look at this. We are watching Jurrac Meteor descend from the heavens, doling out divine justice through their big rocky body, which will cause an impact that will ruin not just the tribes in the surrounding area, not only deal a decisive blow against the Fabled, but will extinguish both the Jurrac and Flamvel tribes, wiping them from the face of Terminus. And the art they chose to portray this moment is this! Goofy cartoon eyes popping out of their head, Fabled gasping for air after they've swum for their lives, Meteor just looking kinda angry, not expressing the deep sorrow and pain that went into this final tactic that would end the lives of all it held dear. Look, when I say Yu-Gi-Oh has a lore problem, this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about here. This better get an alt art treatment from Terminal World, because this is like anti-story going on here. It's just the worst. Alright, that's all the Jurrac cards, but what do we do with them? Well, we're in a pretty precarious spot here. Back in the day, monsters like Titano or Tyrannus might have been something approaching a boss monster, but nowadays just being big and good at hitting things isn't enough. Astero thankfully provides a comprehensive suite of summon control and a board wipe, but that's really all the modern support is capable of accomplishing, meaning these are going to be tech picks in bigger dino decks instead of us looking for techs that go into Jurracs. That being said, for all those out there looking to play a more pure Jurrac deck, here are the dinosaur cards you're going to want to play to help them out. And first on our list is not a dinosaur. Sorry, but I want to get this one out of the way really quickly. Megalo is going to be an important part to any version of the deck, and like we alluded to in its section, Diabell Star the Black Witch is going to be paramount to easy success. It can grab original Sinful Spoil Snake Eye, which you can use Diabell as fuel for to summon Megalo. Now you can cycle through cards or pop it to get Astero into the graveyard, but that's not the only thing that you can grab. We can get the old Dino Rabbit team back together with another piece of legacy support for our other accompanying theme, Evotile Mega Kyrea. Bonus, its effect can actually special summon most of our Jurracs, including Hera, but if you want the most value out of it, you'll have to summon some evil SARs like Leos or Elias or something like that. Okay, back to more dinosaur support. Fossil Dig is a standard at 3. It's reinforcement of the army, but better because it can grab up to level 6 dinos. And to search even more, Soul Eating Oviraptor has been a staple in every dinosaur deck since it was released, searching out any dinosaur from your deck to your hand on summon. In fact, because Megalo can be special summoned if you control a dinosaur, it's a perfect pairing. As long as you have another dinosaur in grave, you can pop the Megalo to revive that dino, and then get the Foolish Burial effect. Though more traditionally, you'll want to be popping cards like Baby Ceresaurus and Petite Pteranodon to get free monsters out of it. Ultimate Conductor Tyranno is still the gold standard of boss monsters in the dinosaur sphere, and there's really no reason not to run it here. It's easy to summon, has a great control effect, and is ready to throw down against an entire field of monsters. We can even utilize Double Evolution Pill as long as we're playing any non-dinosaur. So, I don't know, include some hand traps. Zombies, psychics, and spellcasters can crop out of anywhere as long as you include those. Heck, even Evotiles are non-dinosaurs. Get that reptile representation. Kaitoptera grabs us a copy of Polymerization once per turn, which we can use to fold it and any other dinosaur in our roster into Horned Source. It can swing in for a decent chunk of damage directly the turn it's summoned, but the most important part is our ability to place field spells into our field zone, either getting Volcano from your deck onto the field, or recycling it from the grave after you've swept all the cards off the field. Heck, you could even use this to swap between your field spells. Jurrac Volcano is cool, but Lost World is another dinosaur staple that we'd otherwise miss out on using. But because Horned Source recycles from the graveyard, we could potentially swap between the two. Oh yeah, and you know, the extra normal summon, that's pretty cool too. Kaitoptera also has an alternate effect that summons it to the field if it's banished, as well as getting us back a Polymerization, a function that it shares with Giant Rex. And while this is really useful when using Double Evolution Pill or Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, banishing dinos in general doesn't really happen much in Jurracs outside of Astero's Summon Negation effect, so that may not be as prevalent. I'd be dragged over the coals if I didn't make sure to mention Miscellaneous Source. Now, dropping the kayfabe here, we can all get on board with how busted this card is. It's a hand trap that effectively makes one main phase a total freebie for you, keeping your dinos unaffected by your opponent's activated effects. And while in the graveyard, you can banish it plus any number of other dinos to summon a monster whose level matches the amount of dinosaurs that you banished. This is what makes Megalo, and other dinos like Animadorned Archosaur, so easy to deploy with this, cause it just needs one monster. In fact, it's one of the myriad reasons why this card is currently limited, because it's just so good at setting up your plays while also making them impossible to interact with. Also, have I really drilled it in how easy it is to search for basically any dinosaur? Soul Eating Oviraptor and Fossil Dig makes it so you can have your entire deck in your hand at any time. If you do get into a bunch of banishing though, Overtext Coatless is a great follow-up, shuffling back your banished dinosaurs to summon itself, and giving you spell and trap negates. And if it gets sent to the grave by a card effect, you get an Evolution Pill spell card, which continues to get UCT onto the board, which is just incredible. A newly revealed V-Jump promo might also come in handy, Burial Bicorn Carnivorous. It's a generic level 6 synchro, but if any monster declares an attack, you can summon a dino from the hand. And the best part is, it ignores summoning conditions, so you can turbo out UCT or Coatless pretty easily with this. It also has a quick sync effect for any dinosaur synchro monster, both during your opponent's main and battle phase, and your main and battle phase. So during your battle phase, you can attack, summon a level 6 monster from your hand, attack with that monster, then immediately quick sync into Transcendosaurus Glaciosaurus for even more damage. Granosaurus Giga Cannon is a recent Xyz monster that can put in some hellish damage. It may say 2200 attack on the tin, but even after a single activation, it goes up to 3200 attack, and does big chunks of burn along the way. But let's be honest here, the real rank 4s you are making are the Evolzars. Dolka and Logia are just so good as negation bodies, it's kinda hard to undersell them, especially with cards like Mega Kyrea helping to keep them stocked up. Just keep in mind any dinosaur locks, because the Evolzars are dragons. This is also a good time to check in on the Ryuga cards. Dinosaur is part of that particular tri-type, and Quiba can grab you Ryuga Ascension Gate of Dinocrag, which will give Astero, or heaven forbid Meteor, a monster negate, which is pretty rad. Oh, and I guess it also works with UCT too. As for a silly tech pick, let's take a look at another Duel Terminal theme that loves fire, Lavolvol's Salamander. It draws you cards and nets you a Book of Moon every turn. No, it's not silly enough. It's great to bring in other lore themes, but we need something truly outrageous. No, for this one, we're bringing in Uradora of Fate. You pay 1000 life points, target one of your monsters, and it gains 1000 attack until the end of your opponent's turn. And every time it destroys a monster by battle until the end of your opponent's turn, you get to reveal the bottom card of your deck. Place it either on the top or the bottom of your deck, and if the revealed card was a dragon, dinosaur, sea serpent, or worm, you draw a card for every 1000 attack that it has, then gains 1000 life points for each card drawn. So in a dinosaur deck with big monsters, you could potentially walk away with some big chunks of advantage. But you may be asking, isn't the only multi-attacker that we have Ultimate Conductor Tyranno? Doesn't that mean this is more of a silly tech pick for dinosaurs in general, and that's where you'd be wrong? I bet you've already forgotten about them. But we've already got the perfect vessel for this card's power, Jurrac Monoloth. Crank that bad boy up to 2500 and watch it trigger Uradora over and over again. Rake in the life points in card draw when you find a big dino at the bottom of your deck, and just keep it there to ensure the effect triggers over and over again. And that's all I have to say about Jurracs. Honestly, the theme is in a tough spot. Terminal World is great for adding a new touch of paint to old favorites, but Jurrac didn't need to liven up the color scheme, it needed to fix the whole foundation. I mean, I've never been Dino's strongest shooter, but even I know that niche themes like Jurrac have great fans, and want to be able to play a deck of their cards without feeling like they were just made to appease a pile deck that doesn't have its own personality. Hopefully, more sets will release that provide us with some stronger infrastructure. I'm just saying, Flamvels are right there. They became the Neo Flamvel together anyway. Would it kill y'all to make some new cards that show the two themes interacting? It would do a lot to help out my History of Duel Terminal series, just saying. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are Jurracs still just old fossils, or do they still maintain their title as King of the Lizards? And which one's your favorite? I'm not gonna lie, Tyrannus' design is pretty clean. Posing's a little awkward, but it has the spirit. Let me know your favorite down below, and if you haven't already, please be sure to like this video if you liked it, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and be sure to share this video with somebody you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode is brought to you by Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and get 5% off your order by using the coupon code GoldenNova at checkout. It was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commanders, Upstairs Media and Natiel Lee Alexander, Nebula Navigators 3rd Dynasty, 50 Gigabytes, Ada Basilisk, Adam Zajdel, Ancient Wizard, Andrew Newman, Battle Axe, Kane Senpai, Chibi Gohan, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Comrade Cobblebottom, Eric, Frankie, Garland Chaos, Going It/Its for the Bit/Bits, Great Big Pillock, Hair Bear, Happy Majin, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Carp, Marion James E. Picata, Millennia Asta, Muse Clark, Neon Yaminair, Orozco 09096, Panther J, Pat Poos, Rank 10 Trains, Rebel King Lucifer, Red Eyes Jackalow, RJ the Jank Monarch, The Critic of Innocence, Thievery Coast and the Wizard Moose, Cosmic Crusaders Animasta, Baron von Titty Sprinkles, Beelzebub, Fish, Beluga Master, Blitzwolf, Caesar M, Chaz Ghost, Dr. Reaper RIP, Eva Padilla, Hike Boyagian, Herbal D, Ignis Heat, the true Draco Slayer, Inblink, Kale the Dragon, Lobomaru02, Manga Pages, Matt Simmons, McSpoofy, Mike, Nitromo, Not Al Gore, Nyx, Obsidian, Rainer Leong, Rhyme Kairos, Shizuki Nijimura, Sir Knight JCB, Sophie, apparently, Stephen Williamson, The Legendary Raven, The Phantom Knights of Shitted Pants, The Gene, Tiger X2476, Weasel King of Weaseltown, and Zaldreka, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get my videos early, be a part of these credits and other awesome perks, it would mean the world to me if you would check out the link to my Patreon in the description or consider joining as a YouTube member. And if you'd like to see what I was talking about when it comes to the history of the Duel Terminal, check out this series right here, which has covered everything that happened so far in Age 1.0. Trust me, the Jurracs get a very intense send-off. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.